So, good evening, everyone. Right. It's lovely to see you. And since we have already discussed all the important conceptual aspects of economy, right? So, this session is going to be a kind of practice for everyone, right? So, and everyone knows that uh, questions from economy section are generally asked around 15 to 18 questions on an average in a pre-examination of UPSC, right? So obviously it is a very significant aspect. And since all the questions that we are going to discuss in today's session and tomorrow's session are exclusively focused on economy, and the questions which have been asked in the last, though the focus has been the last 10 to 12 years, but even questions spanning around 30 years have also been included, which have got their significance in the upcoming examinations. And those students who have seen the previous year questions must be aware that if you have conceptual understanding along with current affairs updation of current affairs, so this gives you an edge over rest of the other students who have only one of the two, right? So we are going to cover all the conceptual important concepts, right? To discuss it. I'm pretty sure this session will give you a lot in terms of refreshing all the concepts that we have discussed. So without any further delay, let us discuss this question, which has been asked in 2013, right? And this is a very simple and conceptual question, right? So this type of questions should not be committed any kind of mistake by any student. Otherwise, it creates a lot of problem. Okay. So it says the national income of a country for a given period is equal to, it says total value of goods and services produced by the nationals. You see, whenever options are given, you are supposed to select the best option in the given options. Though there could be, it is not that only there's 4 options, out of them one would be the best. No, there could be multiple, but you have to select within the given options, right? So I'm pretty sure we have discussed national income. If you can precisely remember the things in the class, and those who are not present, just they need to understand. Okay. So the total value of goods and services produced by the national, it sounds very attractive, yes or no? But is it correct? Sum of total consumption and investment expenditure, partly it could be. Sum of personal income of all individuals, it sounds very tempting. Right? So now money value of final goods and services produced. Right? So do you remember? It says total value of goods and services. That sounds very good. But here at money value, we know that what is GDP? Monetary value of all the final goods and services produced in a given period of time, generally in a year, in a financial year. So remember, it says final goods and services. This word final is extremely important. We have discussed about the difference between intermediary goods and final goods. Final goods and services are those goods and services where further value addition is not required. That's what precisely we have discussed, right? So what would be? Which option would be? Obviously D, right? There are certain, I mean, you will be getting a few options which sounds very tempting, right? And this type of options are very deceptive in nature, right? But if you have conceptual clarity, final goods and services, right? Okay, let us see the second question. Does this question make any sense? It is saying increase in absolute and per capita real GNP, right, do not connote a higher level of economic development. Are you aware about the concept of economic development? We have discussed about the difference between economic growth and economic development, right? So absolute and per capita somewhere. So whatever absolute or per capita, we have discussed all these things, right? So what does this term economic development mean? Sometimes it is not necessary to remember everything. So if you go deeper and decipher the main words, it becomes easier for you to opt for the right option, right? So it says industrial output fails to keep pace with agricultural output. Agriculture and industry, are there only two sectors in economy? Right. So why industrial output fails to keep pace with agriculture output? I mean, it does not make any sense. I mean, economy and per capita, this tends to, so from a comprehensive point of view, right? Agricultural output fails to keep pace with industrial output. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, economic development, obviously economic development, when there is improvement in the overall living standard of people in areas of education, healthcare, infrastructural development, all these things, right? So economic development, imports grow faster than exports. I mean, how could this be? It would be just an opposite, right? Poverty and unemployment increase. Increase in absolute and per capita real GNP do not connote a higher level of economic development if poverty and unemployment increase, right? Right. So it does not show, right, that there is an improvement in the overall GNP or per capita income. If there is an increase in your income, so obviously your poverty level will go down, not go up, right? So obviously, if poverty and unemployment increases, does not show that there are any signs of economic development, right? So obviously, this C option would be the correct option. No, don't go very technical. Don't go very technical. It says increase in absolute and per capita real GNP, right? So don't get confused with between absolute and per capita. I mean real GNP. Understand all these things. What does this mean? If there is an increase in real income, right, absolute income, whatever it is. So if we understand it, there is an increase in income. So if there is an increase in income, so the level of your poverty should go down or go up. It should go down. So obviously it would be poverty and if poverty and unemployment increase, it does not show that there has been economic development in the country. We have discussed thoroughly about the difference between economic growth and development, right? So earlier we have discussed all the trickle down effects, right? So obviously if poverty and unemployment increases, it shows that the real the GNP and the income level of the country has gone down, not gone up. Getting the point, right? So it is saying if you have to remember, understanding the question is extremely important. Most of the candidates, what do? Sometimes superficially, they are so much in a hurry that they do not pay attention to understanding the question thoroughly. Even it takes slightly more time, you must spend time reflecting the question. Because once you understand the question, 80% your problem could be removed. Because at first sight, a number of questions appear such that it sounds very difficult. But when you focus on important terminology of the question, immediately you start making senses. And sometimes it happens that you are not able to opt the correct option. So you start right? Finding out the wrong options, automatically you will find the right option. Okay, so let us take the third question. This is very conceptual question. I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to understand it. A closed economy is an economy in which closed economies, we understand. I mean, India has never been a closed economy. And in technical terms, it is very difficult to predict that an economy was closed. Before 90s, India had an inward-looking approach, right? So what does a closed economy means? We know that China and Japan have been once closed economy, right? So we have discussed all these things. So the money supply is fully controlled. Money supply is fully controlled. I mean, there is no need of money supply being controlled. I mean, deficit financing takes place. It's a very difficult option. Only exports take place. Neither exports nor imports take place. You see, sometimes what happens that when you start looking at the options, the first option tends to be very tempting. So some candidates, what do? They generally jump and opt that option. They do not pay attention to the given other options. So never jump any option, however tempting it sounds at the very first sight. Getting the point? So you have to give importance to all the options, right? There should not be discrimination. Otherwise, you will suffer, right? So obviously, neither exports nor imports take place. And we know that China and Japan have been once, though other countries have been, like if you take the example of perhaps North Korea, that would be more an example. So, I mean, there were, so the neither exports nor imports take place. That is the closed economy. Okay. Now let us see the next question. Right. Very significant. We keep on hearing inclusive growth. Right. So inclusive growth, the concept of inclusive growth has become very significant because the pace of growth at which the world economy and especially Indian economy has been growing, obviously it has to be inclusive. Inclusive growth means each and every section of the society should be included, right, in the effort of development of the country, and especially the vulnerable section of the society, weaker section of the society. Okay, so which of the following can add in further self-help groups? You know that people get united and form some kind of group and start small business or whatever. It is a very empowering way to, it is a very important way to empower vulnerable section of the society. Now, promoting micro, small and medium enterprises, obviously MSMEs play a very significant role, especially where around 90%, right? I mean, employment comes from MSMEs, right? So organized sector has a very limited role, right? Hardly 8%, right? So implementing the Right to Education Act, obviously this Right to Education Act was brought by government with the focus of increasing, because unless people are educated, they cannot be aware about their rights. What to talk of duties. Okay, so all these things are included to ensure inclusive growth, right? So what would be? It would be D, 1, 2 and 3. Right. See this question. If you cannot remember that, what was the major objectives of 11th 5-year plan? But still, If you just use your common sense, if you have conceptual understanding, what does this inclusive growth mean? What does this concept inclusive growth stand for? Then immediately you'd be able to make out the correct option. It says inclusive growth as enunciated in the 11th 5-year plan does not include. Remember, it says does not include. You have to focus on this word not, because some people, they become bulldozer like. They do not pay much attention to small words of manipulations. Right? So obviously it includes a reduction of poverty, because all these things, obviously, government tries to reduce poverty. Extension of employment opportunities, obviously government tries to, the very objective of public investment is to remove, right, poverty, to encourage employment opportunities, reduction of gender inequality. Obviously, government tries and has been trying to promote gender equality. So obviously the reduction of gender inequality, obviously. So strengthening of capital market. Capital market, I mean, it has nothing to do with inclusive growth. We have studied in public finance, right? So in capital market, we have studied money market and capital market. Money market happens to be short term or long term, right? Money market and capital market happens to be long term, right? So right. So what would be the option? C. Okay. The term national income representation. This question has been asked in 2001, right? Unless those people who have studied national income accounting properly, otherwise it would be very difficult for them to answer this question. Though we have discussed at great length. So this is slightly technical. So, right. So those who are not present, when they will get the opportunity, so they will be able to understand it. Okay. So it says the term national income representation. Gross national product at market prices minus depreciation. This sounds very tempting. It says gross national product at market prices minus depreciation plus net factor income from abroad. Do you remember plus minus? Right. Those who have been, right. So remember, this sounds minus. And there is, if you see B and D, these two options, if you see both sentences, both the options are same. There is only difference of one word. Here it shows minus gross national. Okay, sorry, plus net factor income from abroad. Here it says plus, and here it says minus. So plus minus. Actually, though in case of India, right, we know that national income comes out, right, plus and minus. It could be plus also, minus also, it varies according to the country. Like in the case of India, it is minus. But this question has been asked from general perspective. This question has not been asked specifically in case of India. Had it been asked, then the answer would have been different. Right? So here plus would be, plus word is imbalanced, makes this option imbalanced, and obviously here minus makes this option imbalanced. That is half truth. Both these options are half truth. Right? Because this question, the term national income representation, this does not ask that whether it is of India or USA or of which country, right? So we have discussed it. So technically, according to the circumstances, national income product at market prices minus depreciation and indirect taxes plus subsidies. This option would be the correct one. Right? Plus minus, that's it reduces B and D. So it would be C. We have discussed, unless you have proper understanding of the national income accounting, slightly this is a technical topic. So I'm just discussing it, right? So those who have studied will be immediately able to make out, right? Okay. Now, let us see economy liberalization, right? This is a very significant, and this topic, right, keeps on coming up. You see, all these questions which have been selected have also been kept in mind from the mains perspective, right? If you don't have understanding of all these things, then it would be very difficult for you to write down answers in mains too. Obviously, this will help you a lot in pre. You see, economy liberalization in India started with, we know that India's economy LPG reform started in 1991, right? So it says the convertibility of Indian rupee. Yes, after some time, convertibility of Indian rupee started. Current account, there are two types of account: current account convertibility, capital account convertibility. We have discussed all these things. So though India, which convertibility India follows? Current account convertibility, not capital. It follows partially, right? So convertibility of Indian rupees. But again, this is a vague option. We do not have full convertibility of rupee, right? But it got us started, but it was quite late. Yes, doing away with procedural formalities for foreign direct investment. This is true. This all started with economy liberalization. But immediately when economic liberalization started, mainly what kind of changes were brought about the government of that time, right? All these options are true. Significant reduction in tax rates. That's very good. This also sounds very good. But you have to select the best option. And we have discussed in the class that economy LPG reforms are also known as new economic policies, new industrial policies. The end of Inspector Raj. Right? There was excessive control. Everything belonged to the state. So obviously, substantial changes in industrial licensing policy. This was a major initiative. Right? So the best option would be A. Getting the point? So all these things are started, but quite late, right? But this was the major changes that were brought by the government. Okay. Again, slightly, this is a technical. We have studied national income at current prices, constant prices. Let us see, what does it say? The growth rate of per capita income at current prices is higher, right? Is higher than that of per capita income at constant prices. Because of the latter takes into account the rate of. The latter means this constant prices. We have studied current prices and constant prices, right? Constant prices is measured at base year, where inflation is considered to be an average is taken, right? So here in current prices, current inflation is taken into account, right? Do you remember all these things? If you don't go through and revise all these things, that will, right? So because the latter takes into account the rate of, it does not take the rate of. Here we are talking about the income growth. So here there is no point of population growth. An absurd option. Even if you could add some common sense and maintain cool, right, under pressure. So you can weed out unnecessary options, right? Growth of money supply. Here we are not discussing inflation, that it will go up, prices will go down, come down. Here we are discussing about income. So this won't be the case also. Increase in the wage rate, right? No. Increase in the price level. We have discussed about constant prices and current prices, in which in constant prices it is measured at base year, where inflation is what? Increase in the price level, right, of most of the goods and services in a given period of time. We have discussed, right? All these things have been discussed. So it's a kind of practice for everyone. Those who are present in the, right, in the classes sessions, it would be much easier for them to answer. And those who are not, I mean, obviously that will help them to think in these ways, right? So now, see this question. You see, now the question is, the basic difference between imperative and indicative planning is that, you see, if you see this, India follows what kind of planning? Right. You see, I'm pretty sure you must have studied imperative sentences in your school. Imperative sentences. What are imperative sentences? You need to focus on the words so that you can make some connection, because sometimes words give you some idea. So imperative sentences are what? Are those sentences in which an order is given. Close the door. I'm not asking, I'm just giving an example, right? If I ask, close this AC, so you will say that what the hell are you talking about? How can we survive without AC, especially in this hot and humid condition at Delhi? Isn't so? Right? So imperative sentences means where order is given, command is given. And India is a democratic country. Right? So, I mean, so in case of imperative planning, so an indicative, so imperative, India does not follow. Command economy. We have all this discussed, all these things, types of economy. Right? Here, indicative. Indicative means it indicates. It gives you suggestions. It gives you an idea. There is no element of force in it, in this indicative. It is pointing out. But imperative, there is sense of force involved. Okay, so in the case of imperative planning, the market mechanism is entirely replaced by a command hierarchy. Yes, imperative planning, this is rightly true, because in socialist and communist countries, right, do you remember Mao Zedong, right, and in Russia, right, Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, not Vladimir Putin, right? So I mean, these people dictated the terms, right? So these were the, so while in the case of indicative planning, it is looked upon as a way to improve the functioning of the market system. India follows indicative. So this is absolutely correct, but we will hold it. Let us see. In the case of indicative planning, there is no need to nationalize any industry. There is no need to nationalize. No, it is not so, because India also follows indicative planning, right? So we cannot say this. Right. In the case of indicative planning, all economic activities belong to the public sector. This is also not the true, because India also follows private. Right. While in the other type, they belong to the private. No, no, this is absolutely opposite. I mean, incorrect options. It is easier to achieve targets in the imperative type of planning. No, we cannot say it, because these socialist and communist countries, they had set ambitious targets and they were not able to achieve, and that's why they collapsed by the end of 80s, right? So obviously, in the given options, which option is correct? A. Right? Are they very simple questions, or you're not able to find out? Right? Okay. Now, let us see this question. You should mark it like 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? It says, which of the following are the main causes of slow rate of growing per capita income in India? Per capita income in India, you understand? The average income of a person. Right. So what should it be? High capital output ratio. High capital output ratio. If your investment is high, then return would also be, if investment is high, and then your return would also be high. If you, right, if this happens to be low, so this is also low. So what is the use of it? Is it an efficient system? If it could be that if there is a low investment and there is a higher return. If there is a high capital, or if there is, right, small capital, right, and the output is very high, then we can say that the system is very efficient. Right? If there is high capital and there is a high output, so is it an efficient system? Obviously not. Right? Okay. This one. This high rate of growth of population, if the rate of growth of population is high, so obviously it will create a lot of problem in increasing per capita income of the countries. And if we can see that all the developing countries, backward countries, there are certain commonalities, and there we can find that their per capita income is high or low? Is low. Right? Wherever there is a high rate of population growth, the per capita income formation happens to be low. This is a common characteristic of a backward economy. Right? So these are the major reasons. Now here, high rate of capital formation. Capital formation high rate? Obviously it won't. Because which of the following are the main causes of slow rate of growing per capita income? It is asking which are the causes. These are the main causes. Obviously, if there is a high rate of capital formation, obviously, it will not, the formation of per capita income will not go down. It will, in fact, increase. Right? So, obviously, this is not the case. High level of fiscal deficit. You see, high level of fiscal deficit, sometimes fiscal deficit is increased, keeping in mind to increase the economic activities. But it is not necessarily, because there could be multiple causes of high deficit, fiscal deficit. It could be because of the high revenue deficit. Right. So though who are not aware about the budget and various technical terminology, fiscal deficit, budget deficit, revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit, primary deficit, these are various important technical terms, right? So obviously they will find slightly difficult. But here, high level of fiscal deficit. you can understand the difference between income and expenditure minus borrowing, right? So I won't explain much over here. This much you need to understand. What is fiscal deficit? If somebody is earning 100 rupees and spending 150 rupees, so 50 rupees is deficit. Bro, there are much more technicalities involved in this. It is not as simple as that I'm explaining right now. But yes, so fiscal deficit does not guarantee. So these are the two major causes of slowing per capita income, right? In India, obviously. So we have 1 and 2. So what would be the option? D, right? Let us see. This is intangible, though there is no gap, but this is intangible, right? Okay, so it says consider the investments in the following assets. How many of the above are considered intangible investments? I'm pretty sure we have discussed all this tangible and intangible. Right? Intangible means invisible. Tangible means something that we can see. Right? Tangible, intangible investments. Right? So, brand recognition comes under services. Services are primarily intangible. Goods are primarily tangible. Getting the point? So brand recognition happens to be intangible. Inventory happens to be goods. Obviously, if you keep shoes, if you have a company, retail store, and in your inventory storehouse, right, there is a pile of shoes. So obviously that is tangible, right? So inventory obviously will be tangible. So it won't come. Intellectual property, obviously, it is intangible. Mailing list of clients, obviously it is intangible. Getting the point? Tangible and intangible. Tangible means those goods which appear to be. Like they have physical goods. Goods are considered to be tangible, while services are considered to be intangible. Right? Services are, so all these three comes under intangible. Right? So how many? Only 3. So option C would be the correct. Right? See this question? Now, let us see the question. It says, consider the following statements. Other things remaining unchanged. Market demand for a good might increase if there is a condition. How? The price of a good increases. Right? Price of its substitute increases. How? The demand for a good will increase if the price of its substitute increases, like tea and coffee. Right? Tea and coffee. If the price of tea has increased, tea happens to be substitute of coffee, or vice versa, we can say it. Right. So generally people go for tea because psychologically coffee is considered to be much more expensive. Like in some regions, tea is considered to be much more respectable. I don't know. I met some South Indian delegates, and they said that at certain conference, international conference, coffee was presented as it happens generally. So they said that if tea had been presented, it would have been better. So I mean, it was their thought process, and we were very surprised because if had tea been served in international conference, all would have laughed at the organizer that how is the miser, this organizer is, that he is serving tea. So I mean, so that is something. So you see, tea and coffee. So if the prices of tea goes up, tea happens to be substitute of coffee. So if the prices of tea goes up, obviously people will think that, okay, if there is not much difference, so why not shift to coffee? Right. So prices of its substitute increases, obviously people will flock to the other. Price of its complement increases. No, complement and substitutes are different things. Like sugar. Sugar happens to be complement. Right? It is used in both coffee and tea. Right? So it's complement. No. Right? Because in itself, the price of that good will go up, and then its demand will not go up, because you know that when the how the demand for a particular product goes up, generally if its price falls down. Have you seen in discounts when a person shouts at the top of his voice and says that in his surroundings people are selling potatoes at 20 rupees, and he says that take me in 1500, loot lo 15 rupees mein loot lo. So everyone, people around run to buy potato at rupees 15 rupees because he is giving discount of 5 rupees. So generally its sale goes up, right? So obviously, so the good is an inferior good and income of the consumer increases. Obviously, what is an inferior good? Right. We have the concept of inferior good and superior good. I mean, when the consumers, right, when the consumer's income increases, generally they go for superior goods, what they consider as a superior good. Right. They are adjusting. Right. So inferior goods are generally those goods that are considered to be of substandard. Considered to be, though it could be psychological also, because branding plays a very significant role. Right. So the good is an inferior good. Right. So I mean, so and income of the consumer increase. No. So this won't increase. I mean, the demand for that product won't increase, because if it happens to be inferior good, its demand will not go up. Right? Because if consumers' income increases, obviously it will leave that inferior good and go for the superior good. So it won't be. Its price falls. Yes. So these are the two things. How the demand for a good may increase if its substitute price increases, and second, if its price falls. These are the two major reasons which lead to increase in the demand for a particular good. Getting the point? These are fundamental things, right? We have discussed all these things at a great length. So I'm just slightly discussing briefly. Okay. So obviously 1 and 4th. 1 and A. So we have A. Okay. its form. Right, getting the point? Here, what is it saying? Here it is saying with reference to the Indian economy. Here the question is Indian economy specific. Consider the following statements. A share of the household financial savings goes towards government borrowings. How does it go? Like majority of Indian household saving goes into deposits of banks and other financial instruments, and these in turn borrow the government securities of government. They invest in government securities as a way of investment. Right, we have discussed all these same things in financial system. Right, I mean, people, where do people keep their money? Surplus savings, generally in banks or buy stocks, buy other financial products, and those in turn financial products are used to borrow government securities. Right, so obviously a share of the household financial savings goes towards government borrowings. This is absolutely wrong or correct? Correct? Yes. Now dated securities. Dated securities where dates have been fixed that for how many days? Right. So we have discussed government securities. Dated securities issued at market related rates in auctions form a large component of internal debt. Obviously, this is also correct, right? Because this government securities rates in auctions form a large component of internal debt. Yes, they form a very major portion of internal borrowing. This is correct, right? So both these statements are correct. So what we have, see, right? Okay, let us see this question. It says along with the budget, the finance minister also places other documents before the parliament, which include the macroeconomic framework statement. The aforesaid document is presented because this is mandated by this document is made mandatory to be presented along with the budget by the finance minister of India. And in the class we have discussed about FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management 2003. Right, FRBM Act, right? FRBM Act 2003. And this FRBM Act made fiscal discipline, right, as a legal, right? It is the constitutional mandate of the government. It has to show that what the steps it has taken, right, to maintain fiscal discipline of the country. It is not that government can go on increasing its fiscal deficit. Otherwise, it will create a burden for the coming generations. Because if the government borrows, who will pay? Obviously, we have to pay, and even the coming generations. It is not that you borrow and then forget. This is not the case. So FRBM Act made it mandatory. Earlier, before that, before 2003, governments used to make announcement that we will cut down the fiscal deficit to this, we will cut down to budget deficit, we will cut down to revenue deficit. They would make an announcement, but in reality, they would do not do. But now it was made mandatory that you have to. So it is necessary to present this this report in the parliament that what steps have you taken, right? And what you wish to take and how will you control this rising deficit and other things, right? So this is the provisions of FRBM Act 2003, which makes fiscal discipline mandatory. Now, this is a very significant step. Now, you see, this question has been asked in 2020 after, right? We saw that COVID, right? And before that, in 2008-9, international financial crisis had taken place. So, I mean, it says if another global financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following actions policies are most likely to give some immunity to India? Immunity, you understand? In COVID, everyone tried to increase immunity, protection, financial protection. We have discussed in the class about East Asian countries' crisis, the so-called tiger economies. Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. In 1997, they had suffered. They had taken a lot of debt, foreign debt, and obviously you have to return. And when inflation, right, created problem for them, then obviously it become costly for them to return. So what is it saying? Not depending on short-term foreign borrowings. You know that short-term loans, what do? They have their rate of interest. Their rate of interest remains lower or higher. If you borrow loan, so if it happens to be short-term, so rate of interest on that loan remains higher. When you go to take loan for a very longer period of time, generally its rate of interest happens to be lower. Right? So if you take short-term loans, it would be very high, which creates a lot of problem. So this not depending on short-term foreign borrowings, yes, we would do, right? We will not take short-term because that will create a lot of burden. Opening up to more foreign banks. Opening up to more foreign banks? No, it has nothing to do. If you open up foreign banks, there is no issue as such. Right? Maintaining full capital account convertibility. You see? If what happens? There is a current account convertibility, rupee convertibility I was discussing, the foreign exchange rate. So we have current account convertibility, we have capital account convertibility. In capital account convertibility, what happens? That there is a free flow of the assets. Right? And India follows partial. India follows this capital account convertibility partially. We do not have complete, because you have to be very financially strong. Only then you can allow free exchange of assets, because that happens. These are slightly technical terms, right? So we have full current account convertibility. We do not have full capital account convertibility, because the moment you enter and ensure capital account convertibility, what will happen? This will allow free flow of movement of assets from one country to the other. Right? That's the reason some countries which are financially not as strong as some countries which are financially very strong, so these countries avoid it. So India follows current account convertibility, not capital account convertibility. It is following partial capital account convertibility because this will make vulnerable to international uncertainties, right? So we go, though India plans to become a full capital account convertibility, but it is in the long term. Unless it is financially viable, only then it can go for full capital account convertibility. Okay, so India is, so what? So these two things will give immunity from the international financial uncertainty, right? So it is saying if another financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following actions, policies are most likely to give some immunities? Immunity means some protection to India. So these two things are going to give more protection. This opening of foreign banks have nothing to do, right? Because there are CRR, SLR, there are certain regulatory measures, and if any foreign bank goes beyond a certain point, then it is declared as a systematically important bank, and certain extra precautionary regulatory measures are imposed on it. So India remains a very cautious country, right? That's the reason we see that in 2008-9 financial crisis, India managed very well, right? So these are the two steps that would be required and will provide immunity to India. Okay, so A and C, it means 1 and right. It has not been given. 1 and 3. Okay, so this should be, I mean, there is some error in that. 1 and, right, option. So this one would be B. This is entirely exchange rate. Foreign exchange rate, what happened? Why does? Because it has a greater demand. Dollar is an international currency, right? There are hard currencies, right? So dollar, there are 5 major currencies of the world, right? So dollar, pound, yen, yuan, right? These are major currencies. Euro, these are 5 major international currencies, right? So these are internationally demanded and freely acceptable across the world, right? So I mean, value of a currency depends according to its demand, right? So if there is a demand for something, more people are demanding, so its value will go up or down? Will go up. So generally dollar remains because dollar is universally acceptable. That is considered to be a secured currency. That's the reason we use the term hard and soft currencies. Hard currency. So USD is a hard currency, right? Though India is trying to do, but India still has to go a long way, right? Okay, now don't take it otherwise. I mean, India has been growing systematically, right? So, huh? It will not some immunity to India. Acha, okay, not right. You're right. Yes, yes. Sorry. This word, we missed this word. Right here. If another financial crisis happens in the near future, which of the following actions, policies are most likely to give some immunity? Right. So, so obviously not depending on not depending on short term. So obviously this one will give the immunity, right? Okay. I mean, this was absolutely, it was needed, right? Yes, very good. So C won't be, because not had it been not, so obviously it would have been, right? That's good, right? So we have, but this happens that we understand that if it is given full capital convertibility, so it will increase the vulnerability of the Indian financial system. Yes, yes. So this will do, right? So if it had been put not over here, then again it would have been, right? So that was okay. But obviously these two things will give. But if had it been put not. Okay. Now a very famous question. About GST. I'm pretty sure why GST has been brought in. One nation, one tax. One tax, one nation. Right? There is a famous slogan. So it is saying what are the most likely advantages of implementing GST? It says it will replace multiple taxes collected by multiple authorities and will thus create a single market in India. Right? Does this sound logical? Yes or no? Right? Now, let us see, it will drastically reduce the current account deficit of India and will enable it to increase its foreign exchange reserve. I mean, it has nothing to do with current account. I mean, we have discussed at great length about current account deficit and capital account deficit. Right? Right? So, it has nothing to do with it. It is saying it will enormously increase the growth and size of economy of India and will enable it to overtake China in the near future. I mean, right. So here overtake China, I mean, there is no competition as such. Obviously, it will enormously increase the growth and size of economy of India because it will make the Indian economy much more efficient. But it will overtake China. I mean, there is no logic behind it, right? So, okay. Right. So, obviously, this option A is the best, right? Let us move. Now, see this question. What is it saying? It says, which of the following are included in the capital budget of the government of India? Capital budget. In the budget we have discussed, in public finance we have discussed, right? People seem to be getting angry. That what are you discussing? All these are very technical terms. So how will we be able to understand? Right? No. It's an act of protest of intellectual people. Right? No. Accidentally it happened. Okay, no issues. Now, so if we see which of the following are included in the capital budget of the government of India, it says expenditure on acquisition of assets like roads, buildings and machinery. Yes, these are included. Capital expenditure happens to be a productive one, right? It's receipts and expenditure. Loans received from foreign governments, obviously it includes. It also includes borrowings, capital receipts, capital expenditure, right? Loans and advances granted to the states and union territories, yes. All these things we have already discussed in the class, right? So, so obviously it would be 1, 2, and 3, right? Let us see. Now it is saying there has been a persistent deficit budget year after year, right? Which of the following action can be taken by the government to reduce the deficit? Budget deficit has been phenomenon. So if you are the finance minister, what are the steps that you are going to take? Deficit, you are able to understand the difference between income and expenditure? In a simple way, I'm just telling it, right? So reducing revenue expenditure, introducing new, right? So which action can be taken by the government to reduce the deficit? So obviously, what will you do? You will reduce revenue expenditure? Yes or no? You will reduce revenue expenditure? Will you introduce new welfare schemes? When you obviously it would be costly. Reduce subsidies, expanding industries. I mean, it has nothing to do, because expanding industries, it could be, I mean, it could obviously, it could generate, but obviously it will also involve. So what are the major 2 steps that you will take? Reduce revenue expenditure and reduce subsidies. So 1 and 3rd. A, right? Now, it is with. We have discussed plan and non-plan expenditure, right? Plan expenditure are considered to be productive, while non-plan expenditure are considered to be unproductive, right? In public finance, we have discussed at great length all these things. So defense expenditure comes under non-plan expenditure. If a country spends on its defense, it is considered to be wasteful expenditure. Do you remember? I mean, before Second World War, or rather up to Second World War, generally 70 to 80% budget used to be allocated for defense purposes. Now it has been come down to around 10 to 12%. Right? So defense expenditure, interest payments, the borrowings that you have done, obviously you are supposed to pay the interest. Salaries and pensions, that's the reason governments cut down government vacancies. All these things are considered to be part of non-plan, which are considered to be, in technical terms, though publicly they don't call it, but internally in accounting terms it is called wasteful expenditure, unproductive. That's the reason government tries to minimize it. Right? Subsidies. You can see. Right? So C option would be there. Okay, let's move on. Right? समझ में आ रहा है? Are you getting this? It is saying in India, deficit financing is used for raising resources for deficit financing. Deficit when there is a difference between income and expenditure of government. That is deficit. And how will you finance that deficit? So government borrows and uses various means to fill the gap. So why that is financed? So why this deficit is financed? Why it is used for raising resources for what? Obviously for economic development. Government says that it overspends because it has to stimulate, right, economic activities to generate greater employment opportunities, launch various social schemes so that the overall economic development of the country takes place, right? Because if economic activities goes up, naturally it will get the benefit. Okay, so obviously it is done for economic development. Okay. This is a very interesting question. Getting the point? What is it saying? It says, which one of the following statements appropriately describe the fiscal stimulus? Fiscal stimulus, you understand? Certain financial action has been taken to stimulate the economic activities in a country. That we're just discussing. Right. So it is saying it is a massive investment by the government in manufacturing sector to ensure the supply of goods to meet the demand surge caused by rapid economic growth. So it is talking about a massive investment by the government in manufacturing sector. So are there only manufacturing sector in an economy? What about agriculture and other sector? And manufacturing happens to be one subcomponent of industrial sector. Right? So it is not an appropriate option. It is saying it is an intense affirmative action of the government to boost economic activity in the country. Yes, it is an intense affirmative actions, positive actions. It builds roads, bridges, ports, airports, which generates employment opportunities. And when employment opportunities are generated, in turn, the demand, the aggregate demand, the demand for common people increases. And hence, it gives further increase in the cycle of economic activities in the country. Because when employment opportunity increases, what happens? Obviously, the purchasing power of people will go up or down. When the income of people increases, what happens? Will they demand more goods and services or less? More. And if they demand more, so a positive cycle is created. So when they demand more, obviously, those goods and services have to be produced. And then it will create a positive environment for the producers concerned to invest and then produce and then hire more. So a positive cycle sets in rather, right? So now it is the government's intensive action on financial institutions to ensure disbursement of loans to agriculture and allied sector to promote greater food production and contain food inflation. Again, it is partial. This one is manufacturing. This is only related with agriculture. So this is a partial, half representative, right? It is an extreme affirmative action. You see, look at the words. You have to be very careful at the words. This option is absolutely perfect. It is an extreme affirmative action by the government to pursue its policy of financial inclusion. That's good. But here it is using the word extreme affirmative. And here it is using what kind of word? Intense. Extreme is a negative word. Right? And here it talks about boost economic activity in the country. So it includes each and every section. Here it is talking only about financial inclusion. So financial inclusion, it focuses only on weaker section. So because of the differences, it is much more positive and much broader. So obviously this is going to be the best option. So what would be B? Be the correct option. Now, intense activity means you become very active, right? This extremist, have you heard the word extremist? Extreme of everything is bad. Have you heard this proverb? So the very word extreme is a negative word. Intense means at a very high level. When something intense program is going on, it means this program is going at a high level. A lot of activity is there, right? It is an extreme affirmative. Their word extreme is a negative. Though generally, I mean, sometimes a particular word could also be used in a positive sense too, but depends according to the situation. So here it is saying it is an extreme affirmative action. Here it is saying it is an intense affirmative action. So this word is much more moderate in comparison to this one, right? First thing. Second difference is to pursue its policy of financial inclusion. The financial, when we talk about financial inclusion, immediately the focus shifts to the weaker section of the society. Here it is saying of the government to boost economic activity in the country. So when you boost economic activity in the country, it includes each and every section of the society. So it is much more broader, right, in comparison to this one. So obviously it would be this fiscal stimulus is brought because the government tends to increase the speed of economic activity, right? That's the reason this is the best. It is saying what is the difference between vote on account and interim budget, right? I mean, we had discussed in the class in public finance, we had discussed, and can you remember? Interim means temporary, short term. And before the general election last year, the government had brought in interim budget. So was that government a caretaker government? Obviously not. The government was not a caretaker. Caretaker government is a temporary government. Right? Just it has been asked to take care of. No. Interim budget is for a short period of time. Generally, it happens that before the general elections, it takes. So, I mean, it is, I mean, in interim budget, I mean, what is a budget? It's an account of income and expenditure. That's how it is, as simple as that, right? So, here the provision of a vote on account is used by regular government, while an interim budget is a provision used by caretaker government. This word, this very caretaker word, if you are aware, in 2024 interim budget had been brought in and we had discussed it. So this very word by caretaker government makes this first option incorrect. Second, a vote on account only deals with the expenditure in government budget. Right? You have to vote on account. Right? Or voting takes place. Right? And only it, I mean, you have to get permission. Here, interim budget includes both expenditure and receipt. Right? So, this is correct. So, here it would be B. Okay. Now, see. Right. Do you have any idea? All options have been very carefully given and all seem to be very deceptive. Which one of the following is responsible for the preparation and presentation of the union budget to the parliament? Now here, Department of Revenue. This sounds very confusing. Then Department of Economic Affairs. Then Department of Financial Services. Then Department of Expenditure. Right? All these options have been intentionally given to confuse because all somewhere are related with some money making, budget making activities, money related, right? But remember, Department of Economic Affairs, it comes under, is the budget department of Ministry of Finance, right? So this Department of Economic Affairs, it is a part of the budget department, right? So this one, Department of Economic Affairs, prepares this, right? Before budget is presented, I mean, people generally think that, okay, it takes only 8 to 10 days, but it is a 5 to 6 months long process, right? It's a very intensive process. It is not that just in 5 to 10 days things get ready and then it is presented by the finance minister. No. Okay. Now, yes, consider the following actions by the government. Suppose you are finance minister of India. So what action would you take in the context of economic recession? You know that in the economic recession, economic activities goes down, though there are technical differences, right? So in the context of economic recession, which of the above actions can be considered as part of the fiscal stimulus package? Fiscal stimulus package, a group of major decisions steps taken by the government to increase the economic activities in the country. So what will you do? Obviously, you will cut down the tax rates. When you cut down the tax rates, what will happen? Like you saw that in this budget, what did the government do? Right. It cut down the taxes. The tax bracket was increased. At up to 12 lakhs, you are not supposed to pay taxes. You are cutting the tax rates. Right. So, cutting the tax rates, so that when you cut down the tax rates, what will happen? The taxpayers will be left with more money, yes or no? So this is good. Increasing the government spending. The spending of the government will be increased. So if the government increases the spending, what will happen? Economic activities will come down or go up? Will go up, right? Abolishing the subsidies. If you end subsidies, what will happen? It will do the opposite. Subsidies are provided so that it gives financial relief. So obviously in this stimulus package, it cannot be. So these are the major steps taken by. So first and second. So what would be A? Right? These are the steps that you would take. Okay. Getting the point? What is it saying? It is saying in the context of governance, consider the following. Encouraging foreign direct investment inflow. And what are the conditions? Which of the above can be used as measure to control the fiscal deficit in India? What is the fiscal deficit? In simple terms, as for now, you need to understand the difference between income and expenditure. Though there is still technical thing in it. But in simple term. So what will you do? It has nothing to do with FDI investment inflow. What will you do? Privatization of higher educational institutions you will do. Right. So that your expenditure, what happens? You are spending more and your income level is less. So how will you bring down your deficit to cut down your expenditure? So how will you cut down expenditure? Obviously, you will privatize the higher educational institutions, then downsizing of bureaucracy you will do, then selling, offloading the shares of public sector undertakings. Yes, these are the ways through which you will get money and your expenditure will come down. Right? So these are the three measures that will help to control the fiscal deficit in India. So second, third and fourth, that would be B. Getting the point? Now, this question is extremely important because this question gives you clear understanding what these four concepts are. Like what is fiscal deficit, what is budget deficit, revenue deficit, primary deficit. In one question, and intentionally this I have included this question. These questions I have selected so that it will have a great impact on your conceptual understanding, right? And then only you need to update, right, with the current affairs. It is saying match list 1 and list 2 and select the correct answer using the codes given below the list. Right. You see fiscal deficit. First, let us understand what is budget deficit. Budget deficit is what? The difference between income and expenditure. Everyone has a budget. Right. So everyone has a budget. Someone has 100 rupees and commits expenditure worth 120 rupees. So this is called budget deficit. So the difference, so budget deficit, see it. It's saying excess of total expenditure over total receipts. So what it would be? So B1, right? Then what is revenue deficit? What is excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipts? Revenue deficit, when you spend more, when you commit more revenue than receive, so that is the deficit. Deficit means lack of, right? So revenue deficit, this one. Now what is fiscal deficit then? Budget deficit, we have understood. What is fiscal deficit? Excess of total expenditure over total receipts less borrowings. Fiscal deficit is the same like budget deficit, but the difference is only you are supposed to subtract borrowings, right? So this fiscal deficit, excess of total expenditure over total receipts less borrowings, right? Those who are not present in the budget class, I have explained it in great details. So I'm just briefly outlining all these things and discussing. So it is a kind of practice, right? And primary deficit is the same like fiscal deficit, but the difference is that only interest payment of the previous year is subtracted from the fiscal deficit. That is primary deficit, right? So primary deficit is excess of total expenditure over total receipts less borrowings and interest payments. That is primary deficit, right? So you can see that A includes 3, B includes 1, and then C includes 2, okay, and D includes 4, okay. So this one, A. Getting the point? Now, what else? Are you getting the point? It is saying which one of the following statements regarding the levying, collecting, and distribution of income tax is correct. So, if you see, the union levies, hence imposes, collects, and distributes the proceeds of income tax between itself and the state. You should remember it. Corporation tax, union government does not distribute, but income tax is distributed, right, between itself and the states, right? So remember this fact regarding income tax. So this A is correct. Okay. Economic survey. Okay. Which one, presidents? We do not have planning commission, but at that time planning commission was there, right? Now we have Niti Aayog. What is Niti Aayog? Niti Aayog stands for National Institution of Transforming India. Niti Aayog, right? Okay, so so Economic Survey of India is published officially every year by Ministry of Finance. Remember it. This question is related taxation, right? So a redistribution of income in a country can be best brought about through taxation is a measure through which resources of a country are distributed among people, right? Taxes are taken from rich people and those proceeds are distributed by the government through social goods like and other infrastructural development, right? So obviously India follows what kind of taxation? We follow progressive taxation. As the income of a country increases, what kind of taxation we follow? India follows progressive taxation. As the income level of a country, as the level income of a person goes up, accordingly taxes are imposed. Yes or no? And combined with progressive expenditure, and accordingly expenditure is also increased. The more income you got, the more government spends it in the form of public expenditure, building of roads, airports, and right. So we need to here progressive taxation combined with regressive. No, it won't be. Because if the income increases, obviously, why will the government decrease its expenditure? So this makes it incorrect. Regressive taxation, no. What is regressive taxation? As the income grows and when taxation decreases, so that is regressive. Like what? Indirect tax. Indirect tax is considered to be regressive. Why? Because rich and poor pay the same tax. Right? A chips on which if 1 rupee has been put as indirect tax, GST, so even a person who earns 10,000 rupees will have to pay 10 rupees, and a person who earns 1 lakh also has to pay 10 rupees. So that's the reason indirect taxes are considered to be regressive in nature. Why? Because they put equal. The burden of tax falls equally on both rich and poor. But here taxation India follows, that is progressive. Right? That's the reason indirect tax. And it has been observed that in developing countries where it is very unpopular decision to increase direct tax, because generally those people who pay taxes happen to be very aware. So they built a consensus and awareness among the country, and it could turn out to be against the government of the day. So that's the reason government generally avoid. And in turn, what do? They decrease direct taxes, that is income tax and other things, corporation tax, and then indirectly what do? Indirect taxes, they increase. Right? So that's how it happens. So regressive taxation, no. We don't have. Regressive taxation combined with progressive, no, we don't have. How could it be? So this A, this one happens to be the situation, right? Now, let us see corporation tax. It is not levied and appropriated by tax states. No. No. It is levied by the union and belongs to it exclusively. Corporation tax. Unlike the right income tax. Right. Corporation tax is different. Now you see, near and rear. Remember nominal and real. Where real means it includes, it adjusts inflation. Inflation adjusted. Getting the point? Near and rear, basically what do? They show, right, we have exchange rate of domestic currency in respect to the currencies of other countries, especially weighted average of major countries. So near and rear, basically what do they? They are almost same, but only the difference is about adjustment of inflation. In nominal, have you studied in nominal GDP and real GDP? The difference is only with the adjustment of inflation. In nominal, it is not adjusted, while in real, it is adjusted. So what happens? Near and rear, you need to understand that near shows the inflation rate, right? The exchange rate of a domestic currency in comparison to the rate of foreign currencies, especially weighted average of a few currencies, right? So what happens? In simple term, you can say that what is near? It is the rate of domestic currency in comparison to other currencies of the world. So if near increases, it means the price of your currency appreciates. So if the price of your currency appreciates, so what happens? Increases. So what will happen? If your currency appreciates, so what effect it will have? Your exports will go up or down. If your currency appreciates, those people who have attended foreign, and we have discussed all this, right? So if your currency becomes costly, that is, we use the term appreciate and depreciate. So if your currency becomes costlier, so it appreciates. So when it appreciates, so what your exports? Your exports go down. Why? Because your products become much more expensive. But if your currency depreciates means then its price, the price of your products goes down. And when goes down, so for foreigners, your goods and services will become cheaper. So your exports will increase. Getting the point? So in rear, or remember, whenever increase in near or rear happens, there is an appreciation. Right? And whenever it goes down, opposite happens. Getting the point? So appreciation and depreciation. Right? Remember, we have discussed these things at detail. So it says an increase in the nominal effective exchange rate near indicates the appreciation of rupee. Yes, if there is an increase, so there will be an appreciation. Right? So appreciation, this is correct or wrong? This is correct. Getting the point? So this near and rear are basically exchange rate. It shows the price of your domestic currency in comparison to a group of currencies, a basket of currencies. Right? So that is. So what happens if an increase in near, so it indicates appreciation of rupee. This is a fact. Because if rupee appreciates, naturally India's export will go down. Why? Because for foreigners, it will become costlier. That's the reason there is a serious allegation against China that they have depreciated their currencies. That's the reason from time to time, India have also gone for depreciation. Rather, it has gone for devaluation. Right? So, we have done it. Now, here it is saying an increase in the real effective exchange rate indicates an improvement in the trade competitiveness. No. Whenever there is an increase, be it near or rear, so your goods will not become competitive. Your goods will become less competitive. Why? Because your goods and services will become much more costlier. So here it is saying an increase in the rear indicates an improvement in trade competitiveness. No, there is no improvement. In fact, it worsens. Getting the point? Rear and near, you need to understand only nominal, and this is effective, right? Real. So only there is a difference of role of inflation. This is not inflation adjusted and this is inflation adjusted, right? And what is it? Just the price of your domestic currency in respect to the price of major currencies of the world. So if your price appreciates, it means it becomes costlier. It becomes costlier means what will happen? Your products will become costlier, and when your products will become costlier, to whom? These foreigners. So demand for your goods will come down. Right? Getting the point? So when here it is saying an increase in near indicates the appreciation of rupee. Yes, it is correct. Here it is saying an increase in the real effective exchange rate indicates an improvement in trade competitiveness. No, it is the opposite. If there is decrease, then it will improve competitiveness. Getting the point? Inflation, deflation, we have discussed. Right? So this is incorrect. Now the third, an increasing trade in domestic inflation relative to inflation in other countries is likely to cause an increasing divergence between near and rear. Yes. If there is increasing trend in domestic inflation, if there is a domestic inflation, there is a difference between inflation in your country and in the inflation of other countries. So obviously, what is the difference between near and rear? Only the role of inflation. So obviously there will be divergence. Getting the point? Yes or no? So if there is inflation, there is a difference of inflation in India and there is a difference of inflation. In India, we have 7% inflation and USA it has 3%. So obviously there will be divergence. Yes or no? Getting the point? So this is also a correct fact, right? So first and third. So it would be C. So need and remember, we had also discussed. Okay. Let us see devaluation and other things. The effect of devaluation. Right. Depreciate and devaluation are two different things. Depreciate when the value of price goes down, and when devaluation is when it is done by government. Devaluation is official depreciation by government. Here it is because of the demand and supply mismatch. There could be appreciation or depreciation. So there is a technical difference between depreciation and devaluation. Right. So now it is saying the effect of devaluation of currency is that it necessarily, if there is a devaluation, means obviously you are supposed to depreciate. Right. So improves the competitiveness of the domestic export in the foreign markets. What would be the effect of devaluation? Improves the competitiveness of the domestic export in the foreign markets. Yes, yes or no? Because if there is a devaluation, so your product happens to be cheaper for foreigners. Right. So, because how do they borrow and buy and sell? How buying and selling happens? Happens in international currencies? Yes or no? So in international currency, how the value of international currencies are determined at the foreign exchange rate? And how value is decided? Depend on demand and supply of that particular currency. Foreign exchange rate. Foreign exchange rate. Exchange, you understand? Foreign. So the rate of foreign currency. A place where the value of a currency is determined. Foreign exchange rate, we have discussed all these things at great details. So obviously it improves the competitiveness of the domestic export in the foreign markets. Yes. So what would be? It says increases the foreign value of domestic currency. If devaluation happens, so how can increase the foreign value of domestic currency? This won't be the case. In fact, it decreases. That's the reason for foreign importer, it becomes easier, cheaper. So it in fact decreases. Improves the trade balance. It is saying it is necessarily, it could improve the trade balance because generally export increases. Whenever depreciation or devaluation, we have discussed that a number of times India devalued its currency. So why does the government will devalue its currency? Why there is an allegation against China that it has devalued its renminbi? Because China happens to be an export-oriented country. Its economy is based on exports. Right. So a country does something, takes an action to get benefit because if it devalues its currency, obviously what will happen? Its exports becomes cheaper in the international market. And when your product, somebody is selling the same product, a bottle of water, somebody is selling at 20 rupees and the other person is selling at 18 rupees. So which one will you buy? 18 rupees? 15 rupees? I was giving the example of potato. How the potato seller says, loot low, loot low, loot low. That's how they use it. They are marketing the products. So how will you loot low? All are in the surrounding selling at rupees 20s and he is selling at rupees 15. So obviously people run. And though they suffer some inconvenience also, but still they wait for 5 rupees. And if they wanted to take 1 kg, they would take generally 2 kg. Yes or no? So that's how it is also happening at the international level. This is the international market. It not only happens in your colony. The same is the situation almost everywhere at the national or international level. Right? So, Belt BRI project of China, what is it? Why it is doing? It knows that USA does not want China to grow beyond a certain point. So, it has started its own Belt Road Initiative, BRI project, to diversify its investment. It had already anticipated. The new tariff that you are seeing led by Mr. Trump, what is it? Chinese knew that USA will not allow it to grow beyond a certain point because they feel that if the more China will become financially powerful, obviously it will threaten the hegemony of USA. Because the more money you have, the more aspirational you become, the more investment you do in the R&D, infrastructural development, and all those things. What China is doing? China is doing nothing but is diversifying its export market. That even if USA cuts down its imports from China, it will make other countries dependent on its exports. So it is searching for a new market. Getting the point? The struggle is going for market. Right? So that's how it is. So improves the competitiveness of the domestic export in the foreign markets. And it does not necessarily improves. It could improve, but it is not necessarily. Here it is at necessarily. No, it doesn't. It does not guarantee you. So it would be only one. Getting the point? Next. Now it is saying most of the India's external debt is owed by government entities. Remember, private entities are the largest borrowers. Indian government has borrowed has done its borrowing, most of its borrowing internally. In the class we had discussed. So private entities are the largest borrowers. Right? Remember, not government. So this is incorrect. Second, it is saying all of India's external debt is in US dollars. No. All. I mean, India has borrowed It has diversified from multiple countries. It has borrowed in USD. Of course, majority of it is in USD, but not all. Otherwise, India could be dictated. How could India be such a stupid country? No. India has a very refined ideology. India is the only country which has its good relations with both the US and Russia. Right? And it hugs, it's India's Prime Minister hugs President Zelensky, and so with Vladimir Putin. India cannot be responsible for the stupidity of President Zelensky. He went out to fight with Tsar, with the bull. And if somebody is so drunk and has no idea about his or her strength and goes to fight with the bull, so what will happen? What we can do? We can only say, okay, if the bull has thrown him and he's hurt, so we can say that, okay, you got hurt? We are really sorry. Where have you been hurt? Do you need some treatment? We can provide you. Right? But it is you that you fought with bull. Just on the encouragement of certain people. We cannot go and why will we go and fight with bull? Because that bull also works for us. Right? So, I mean, it was his sheer stupidity who went on and to fight with him. So, India maintains. Right? And it has been doing with Palestine and with Israel. We have relations with both. We both believe that there is a two-state solution to this problem, and it is absolutely justifiable. Right? So India has been very balanced, and it is not at present, it has been since its independence. India is a country of Buddha, Madhyam Marg, balanced path. Right? There was a press conference in which there is an American reporter. Right? So she's asked some question with Mr. Modi. Right? So when he was supposed to answer in English, so he started speaking in Hindi. Right? Because she asked that, how could you manage both? And the Russian president was sitting, an Indian prime minister, and she asked that, okay, and the American journalist, perhaps she was from CNN. She's a very popular journalist. So she, right? So she asked that Mr. Modi, right, in India, how could India maintain both these countries? Right? So Mr. Modi started speaking in Hindi. Now you need translator. So the president of, right, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that, look, right, Indian philosophy, you won't be able to understand. Right? So, getting the point. It is perfectly fine. It is our advantage that we have multiple people to deal with. Why should we, right, disturb our relations? So, all of India's external debt is in US. No, this is not. Majority of the debt is in USD, but it is not only in USD. So both these options are wrong. So it would be D. Okay. Now it says, in the context of India, which of the following factors are contributors to reducing the risk of currency crisis? Currency crisis, lack of currency. If you have lack of currency, obviously it will create problem for you, because how will you trade? You won't trade in rupee except with a few countries. International trade and commerce happens in 5 major international hard currencies. And what are? USD, Euro, Yen, Yuan, that is renminbi, and then we have Euro, right? So USD, Yuan, Yen, Euro, and then fifth one, USD, Euro, Yuan, Yen, and then which one is missing? Yuan is of China, Yen is of Japan, Euro, USD, which are 5? I had discussed. Yes, pound. Pound sterling. Britain does not accept euro. It says that it has pound sterling. These are the 5 major hard currencies. Right? Okay. So in the context of India, which of the following factors are contributors to reducing the risk of currency crisis? So the foreign currency earnings of India's IT sector, yes. This will ease. Yes or no? And then increasing the government expenditure. If you increase the expenditure, it will further increase. So it won't. It will increase the currency crisis. Remittance from Indians abroad. Obviously, because when after the nuclear explosion in 1998 by India, economic sanctions were put on India by all the Western countries. So it was the remittances from the world, across the world, that helped India's ease financial crisis, especially currency crisis. India is the largest recipient of remittances. So obviously there's 2, 1 and 3. So that would be B. Yes, this is very much right. In the context of which of the following do you sometimes find the term amber box, blue box, and green box? Green box, blue box, and amber box. Amber box are the signs of stop. The subsidies. The subsidies which are given in agriculture. So any subsidies which are considered to be distorting in nature by the WTO. Right. So amber box, I mean, it's a signal to stop. Because after amber, there is a red light. So amber means it's a sign that yes, you have to reduce it. And certain limitations have been given to both developing and developed countries. Developed countries can extend subsidies only up to 5% of their total agricultural produce, while developing countries up to 10%. Right. So we have discussed all these things. So amber box, blue box, you can give, but with certain restrictions. with certain restrictions. And green box is allowed. Green box, those subsidies which are considered not to distort the prices of agricultural produce at the international market, they are put in green box. And in blue box, you can get, but there are certain restrictions. And amber box, these are red signals. Says, look, you have to cut down. That's the reason farmers' bodies have been protesting against their governments across the world. In India, I mean, that is a different issue. I mean, farmers, they protest, so governments try to repress them. But if you see in countries like Germany and France, they spread cow dung on their parliaments. I don't know, it was cow or buffalo or what. Right? Here, I mean, farmers are much more civilized. And now there, the governments are very civilized. That they could bear. I mean, all the farmers were, they blocked the parliament street in Germany and France. And you know, there were some tankers and they spread the whole building at the building. So that was their way of extreme frustration. Why? Because even the developed countries are cutting down their agricultural subsidies, and India is no exception in other countries, right? And this will increase. So obviously it relates with the affairs of WTO, World Trade Organization. This was set up in 1995. Okay. Now, see this question. It says, which of the following best describes the term import cover? Right? Import cover. Cover, you understand? You must have heard the term, give me fire cover. They say that, give me cover, provide me cover. It means protection. So there are certain words that you can use because of the uses of common sense, you can solve it. So import cover means import protection, sometimes seen in the news. It is the ratio of the value of imports to the gross domestic products of a country. All right. It is the total of, I mean, import. It talks about import, so it cannot be about GST. I'm sorry, GDP. It can't be. It is the total value of imports of a country in a year. It is the ratio between the value of exports and that of imports between two countries. Right. It is the number of months of imports that could be paid for by a country's international reserves. It is the international reserves which provides you protection. That is the financial ability that you have to import. Right? This one. Right. Yes, convertibility of rupee implies that we were discussing about current and capital account. Getting the point? Convertibility of rupees implies that you can convert rupees. Being able to convert rupee into notes into gold. We have to just check what could be. Allowing the value of rupee to be fixed by market forces. It's not market exchange rate. It's talking about the value of rupee. Here it is talking about convertibility. Right. Freely permitting the conversion of rupee to other currencies and vice versa. This sounds very logical. What is convertibility of rupee? That you can convert your currency into other currencies of the world. And there are two accounts, current account and capital account, that we have discussed extensively in foreign trade and BOP. Right. So freely permitting the conversion of rupee to other currencies and vice versa. Developing an international market for currencies in India, no. So we have got the best option, that is C. Right. It says the problem of international liquidity is related to the non-availability of. The problem of international liquidity, you know that it relates with currency, availability of currency, right, is related to non-availability of goods and services, gold and silver, of course, it could be, but it is not. The most liquid is currency. So it is dollars and other hard currencies. Hard currencies that we were discussing a few minutes ago. That those currencies which are universally acceptable as a means of trade and commerce across the world. And these are 5 major hard currencies. Which ones? Dollars, yuan, that is renminbi, Chinese, yen is of Japan, euro, and pound sterling of Britain. These are the 5 major hard currencies, right? So these are right. So C option would be the correct. That's the reason we say foreign exchange reserves, right? Now it is saying with reference to balance of payments, which of the following constitute the current accounts? In BOP, we have 2 accounts, major accounts. Current account and capital account. Current account, in which it includes goods, services, and transfer payments. These are the 3 things. While capital account relates to assets, right? So that's why we have current account convertibility, capital account convertibility. Balance of trade, yes, it includes goods. Foreign assets, no. It will come under capital account. Balance of invisibles, it comes under services. Because balance of invisibles, under it comes factor income and non-factor income. We have discussed all these things in great details. Those who are not present will be able to study it. I'll be discussing all these things, don't worry. Right? Because some are having some signs of trouble that how could be, I'm not understanding, right? It is a great injustice to us. But majority of you have already studied, right? And you will also get the opportunity to study, right? I'll explain it, all these things, right? So Balance of trade and invisibles. Invisibles comes under services sectors. Special drawing rights, no, foreign assets, special drawing rights, they come under capital account. Right? So, I mean, balance of trade and first and third, right? So then we have C. Yes. What is the BOP? We had a BOP, India had a BOP crisis in 1990, and because of the BOP crisis, India went for economic reforms. So the balance of payment of a country is systematic. What is the balance of payment? Financial transaction of a country with the rest of the world in a given period of time. If the balance of your payment is disturbed, like if my standing balance is disturbed, so obviously it will create problem for me. So in the same way, the payment, balance of payment is a systematic record of so what would be? The balance of payment is all import and export transactions of a country during a given period of time, normally a year. Good exported from a country during the year. And what about import? So it is a half truth. Economic transaction between the government of one country to another economic transaction. It is, but in a given period of time, normally a year. It is much more defined and specific. Capital movements, so it is only half truth. So this would be A. Right? So I'll take one or two more questions and then we will continue this session tomorrow also. Right? Because there are a number of questions that we are going to discuss at great length. Right? In detailed manner, we'll be discussing all these things. So take one or two more questions. Which of the following constitutes capital account? Capital account, it relates with assets, while current account relates with goods, services, and transfer payments. And these are both current account capital and capital account, both form the part of BOP. Balance of payment. What is the balance of payment? Financial transaction of a country with the rest of the world in a given period of time in goods, services, transfer payments, and assets. So this assets comes under capital account. Right? So foreign loans, yes. Foreign loans, yes. FDI, yes, it comes. Portfolio investment, yes, it comes. Private remittances, no. It comes under current account. Right? So A, B, and D. It means 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 4. B, yes. B. Let's take one more. Or okay. Which one of the following groups of items is included in India's foreign exchange reserves? India's foreign exchange reserves. Remember, Which one of the following groups of items is included in India's foreign exchange reserves? It does not include borrowings, loans. It does not include loans. So foreign currency assets, right? Foreign currency assets means foreign currencies of other countries. They're considered to be assets. Special drawing rights, a certain percentage that India is bound to keep with whom? IMF, right? And loans, no. All these have loans. So we have foreign currency assets, gold holdings of the RBI, and SDR, special drawing rights. So this is part of, right? Let us see a few more questions quickly, then we will wind up. Oh, everyone is tired. Just let us quickly go through, because hardly there are 6 to 7 more questions. Let us see. We can? Yes? Let us try. Let us try. Let's stretch. This is the extra that we are supposed to. Okay. Both foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investor are related to investment in a country. Which one of the following statements best represents an important difference between the two? Right. So what is the difference between FDI and FII? Right. So FDI, FII helps bring the better management skills. No. And technology, while FDI only brings in capital, it is in fact just opposite. FDI happens to be more stable, permanent, generally in nature, while FII happens to be very fluctuating in nature, unstable. It is just the opposite. FII helps in increasing capital availability in general, while FDI only target specific targets. That sounds very good, but let us hold it. FDI flows only into secondary market, while FII targets primary market. It is not necessary. Right. FII is considered to be more stable. No. It is just opposite. So we have this B. Getting the point? So now this session will continue. Right. Tomorrow too. And let's hope up to day after tomorrow, maybe too. Because our objective is that we should cover all the important questions. Right. Important for the perspective of examinations. Because we can see that all these are extremely important and conceptual topics. And unless you have all these understanding of these topics, it would be very difficult for you to attempt questions correctly in the exam. Right? And what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to just supplement all these things with the current affairs. Right? Okay, so now let's hope to meet tomorrow. Thank you.